My name's Davina Shinsky, and you're listening to Live Without Limits Dreams Come True with the Right Mindset. And today we're going to talk about the 5 important ways to set healthy boundaries with others and stick to them. Are you feeling like someone is stepping on your toes? Or do you feel like you struggle to find a solid line between yourself and others? If you answered yes to either of these questions, you likely need to start thinking about setting a few healthy boundaries for yourself. These boundaries are essential for assuring you maintain control of your life because if you're not guiding your own life, someone else definitely is, whether it's intentional or not. Brain Brown said this during or rather, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. At the end of the day, you have to take care of you. You can't give to others without looking out for yourself first. And this is exactly where boundaries play a major role. Boundaries define where you end and another person begins. And they come in all shapes and sizes. So let's look at the main 7 types of boundaries, whether or not you actually have poor boundaries, and how to set healthy boundaries, ensuring that you create a space where you feel comfortable. So, what are the 7 types of boundaries? The 7 types of boundaries include physical boundaries. This involves your personal space, body, and physical needs or wants. For example, most roommates have boundaries where they don't go into each other's rooms unless invited. Pretty simple, huh? Sexual boundaries. While potentially a sensitive topic, you and your partner should always have an open line on communication when it comes to boundaries during sex. A common one is consent, which means asking before you do something or asking before you do something new. Financial boundaries. This involves lending other people your money or assets. Sure, we don't mind throwing in a bit of money when a friend needs it, but there is a line drawn in the sand. For example, when you go out to dinner with friends, everyone should pay for their share. Intellectual boundaries. This comes down to navigating or, or differing opinions. For instance, maybe you'd rather not discuss a touchy topic at the dinner table or in front of guests. Emotional boundaries. When it comes to emotional boundaries, and when it comes to your emotions, care and respect are important. You are allowed to ask for space when you get in your feelings. You are allowed to express your feelings and expect respect. If they aren't received with respect, you could even have a boundary that you will politely detach from the conversation. Time boundaries. This might revolve around when you answer your phone or maybe the time that you spend on your phone. In today's world, time boundaries are really important when it comes to separating work from your personal life. Expectations, non-negotiable boundaries. These boundaries revolve around deal breaker situations for you. For example, maybe you wouldn't date someone who is an alcoholic, or perhaps if your dad doesn't install the fence around the pool, you've decided that your children can't play in the backyard. All in all, there are a variety of healthy boundaries in relationships, and at the end of the day, it's up to you to determine what yours are and what you're willing and not willing to do. It is important to understand boundaries because when you are in a relationship or it whatever you're looking for, you need to feel fulfilled in some way. And you need to let your partner know what you need. So opening up and being able to tell. And often you'll find one partner not realizing that he's stepping over a boundary or she's stepping over a boundary that's upsetting to you. And if you don't talk about it, if you don't deal with it, then it builds up over time. So you really need to understand where you're coming from and what your boundaries are and how to express them. So, what are some poor personal boundaries? Poor personal boundaries usually mean that you take excessive responsibility for other people's emotions or actions, or you overly expect others to take responsibility for your emotions or actions. If you're not sure whether this sounds like you or not, keep reading, or rather, keep listening. Below, we outline a few questions that you can ask yourself to determine if you've got unhealthy boundaries in relationships. Do I have poor boundaries? To determine whether or not you have poor boundaries, answer the following questions. Do you feel like others take advantage of you? Do you feel like you need to fix others? Are you finding yourself getting sucked into meaningless debates or arguments? Are you always stuck in the middle of a drama? Do you find that you often have to defend yourself for things that weren't your fault? If you answered yes, then this may mean you have unhealthy boundaries. Whether this means you have unhealthy boundaries in relationships or with yourself, you can fix both. In fact, when you set boundaries with yourself, you also are basically setting them for relationships that you have as well. Remember, you can only control yourself and not anyone else. And I think that is something that you might even have to consider that you can only work on yourself. You can't work on someone else. And you need to set the boundaries that you're willing to accept and let them know. So, how do you set healthy boundaries for yourself? Your own personal boundaries and self esteem tend to go hand in hand. Not having healthy boundaries can really damage or damper your self esteem, leaving you lacking confidence and feeling unsure. Did you cause someone to feel that way? How much responsibility should you take in a given situation? Instead of pondering these questions every time, if you have personal boundaries, you'll already know the answer. It all starts with you. So, how can you start setting healthy boundaries and personal boundaries for yourself, ask yourself, what do you choose to tolerate or not tolerate? What are okay behaviors and what aren't? Make sure to really define the boundary also. For instance, maybe you wouldn't tolerate someone showing up 15 minutes late for a meeting. You'll wait 15 minutes, but after that, you'll leave. Whether there's a Zoom call or a meetup. Other examples of boundaries for yourself and others include sticking with in a budget and defining exactly what that budget is, limiting your screen time, setting exact times, not answering work emails after a certain time, again, setting an exact time, not drinking alcohol on weeknights. This is one is already pretty specific. Or rather, let's look at it this way. Not drinking alcohol on weeknights, this one is already pretty specific. Inevitably, there are many more, but hopefully this gives you some guidelines and an idea on how to get started. So, here's some okay, 5 ways to set healthy boundaries. Respecting boundaries, you Respecting boundaries is your own and other people's boundaries is an important part of this. Think of boundaries as healthy rules that you can't break. And if you're still struggling, here is a little more help. Try spending time reflecting about what you want in your life. From there, you can come up with boundaries to define this. Start with small boundaries. They don't need to be drastic. Stay consistent. Again, think of these as healthy rules for yourself to avoid drama or issues in the future and also to help you live your best life. Make sure to communicate your boundaries, especially if you notice someone keeps crossing them. Additionally, you want to do it so that you're being respectful and in a caring way. Sometimes boundaries can be upsetting to others, yet it's also important to know that this isn't technically your fault. Recognize that boundaries of others and respect them. In turn, this can encourage others to respect yours too. So set healthy boundaries. They foster healthy relationships with yourself and others. And at the end of the day, protecting your mental health is important. So you should never feel guilty about setting healthy boundaries that are right for you in your life. Sometimes people will get upset. Now, the truth is that you can only control you and do the best that you can at communicating your boundaries in a respectful and honest way. It's really up to you to decide how you're going to respect those boundaries. And it's up to you to decide how you are going to do that so that it becomes a a way of teaching other people what's respectful and what you want them to do and to accept. And remember this, you control your life. You control what kind of boundaries you're going to set, and you control how you will treat other people. And always remember this: treat people how you want to be treated, because you can't expect them to treat you any differently than you treat